Which running backs do you need to start or sit for fantasy week 6? We're going to go through each and every matchup and talk about all the running backs that you might consider to tell you who we feel good about and who we don't. Only 2 teams on bye this week. That would be the Packers and the Steelers. First, here are the running backs you don't need to worry about. Set and forget. Christian McCaffrey, Bijan Robinson, Josh Jacobs, Tony Pollard, Austin Eckler if he plays, Saquon Barkley if he's back. Before we get to the rest of the running backs, a quick reminder for you.
Introducing our new app, Draft Lane. Connect with us anytime for your start sit, waiver questions, and more. We can instantly access your roster and tell you the exact right moves to make. Access your past leagues and climb the Draft Lane leaderboard and see how you stack up against your competitors. Both Yahoo and Sleeper are supported. Download Draft Lane today and use the promo code ENDGAME to receive $10 in your account. Available on the App Store and Google Play.
All right, let's begin as always with the first game of the week. That's Thursday night. Broncos taking on the Chiefs. This Broncos backfield is definitely different than we expected going into the season. It looks like right now, Jaleel McLaughlin might be the guy who has the most fantasy value. Obviously a hot waiver wire pickup. He's scored a couple of weeks in a row, but is he somebody you want in your starting lineup?
I wouldn't say I want him in my starting lineup, but if I have him in my starting lineup, I probably feel okay. He's been making plays, scoring touchdowns. Definitely not a guy I'm going to say you have to start. This isn't a great matchup against KC. Their defense, very underrated this year, very good. I'm going to say just more of a start him if you need him guy.
Yeah, and if you picked up McLaughlin, either you're hurting at running back like a lot of teams are, and maybe you do need him. It's not a heavy bye week. I think he is startable because he's getting by on efficiency, not volume. If Javonte Williams comes back, that volume might take a little bit of a hit. I mean, as a pass catcher, sure, he has somewhat of a floor in PPR, but still only more of a if you need, maybe kind of flex. And then Samaje Perine had probably his best game of the season as a Bronco last week. But again, because he got more usage, do you think he gets enough volume because, playing from behind against Kansas City, catches a few balls?
I mean, maybe, but I don't feel as good about him as McLaughlin. Maybe that's just because the results haven't been the same for Perine as McLaughlin, but yeah, it's not a great matchup. It really isn't. The Chiefs' defense really, really good this year. I'm going to put Perine in that, only if you need him category, but really more of a desperation flex than anything.
Yeah, I got to put him lower. I had some hopes for Perine coming into this season because he would play that, pass catching role in this Denver offense. Did not expect the undrafted free agent rookie of Jaleel McLaughlin to pretty much take his place. So Perine for me, just ultimately a desperation play. And then Javonte Williams missed last week. Thought he might go, but the hip kept him out. If he comes back, can you consider him?
I don't think so because he doesn't have that explosiveness right now. Like at least McLaughlin, we see him. He has, big runs, big catches. Javonte just doesn't have that right now. And now maybe still dealing with this hip. I'm going to have to sit him.
Yeah, even if he does play, still not playing him. That's really no different than it's been all season. You know this, Javonte, I am out on. Now, on the other side, you got Isaiah Pacheco. Not as many yards last week. Did find the end zone, though. Against the Broncos' run defense, is this just too good to be true?
Too good to be true. You have to start Isaiah Pacheco this week. There are not a lot of running backs I would start over him. I'll talk about him in another video, but for now, he's a must start.
Yeah, it's going to be a recurring theme. You play your running backs against the Broncos. Pacheco is always a guy who's kind of on the fence there. RB2, do you start him? Do you not? You have to. If you have Pacheco, you just got to roll him out. He's facing the Broncos, their terrible run defense, and he's been scoring even against good defenses. I typically don't do the higher lower picks for a touchdown, but this week I'll make an exception. Pacheco's been finding the end zone against the Broncos, who've given up 8 touchdowns to running backs already in 5 games. Yeah, I'll go ahead and take the higher on that. I'm talking about those underdog picks, which, by the way, if you're in on this Chiefs game anyways, you haven't tried underdog, you can also take this week's new customer special, which is that Thursday night game, Pat Mahomes, just 1 yard. So if Pat Mahomes gets a yard and Isaiah Pacheco hits pay dirt, right there, you triple whatever you put into that pick. So go ahead and check it out. Make sure when you do sign up for Underdog, use promo code ENDGAME because that also gets you a 100% deposit match up to $500. That means for every dollar you put in, you get another dollar added to your account. And then what about Jerick McKinnon? Always a chance for a score as well. I mean, normally I don't think we feel too great about him, but does he also have some flex upside just because it's Denver?
Exactly. Because it's Denver. I mean, there's only 2 teams on bye, and let's be real, you're not starting the Steelers running backs, hopefully, but because it's Denver and because there's injuries and things, I'll put him in that if you need him, you can start him category. But even against Denver, that's as high as I can go.
Yeah, I just don't want to get too cute and bench a guy who's normally your starter to hope McKinnon has a big game or score a touchdown. Again, he could be in your lineup, but I'm not sitting a guy like Alvin Kamara for him or anything like that. Another London game this week. It's the Ravens and the Titans. So let's start with Gus Edwards was still the lead back, although somehow he got vultured at the goal line. Not still sure how that worked, but Gus Edwards now facing a tough Titans run defense.
Yeah, I mean, the Titans did just get destroyed by Zach Moss, but I'm not expecting Gus Edwards to do that. In this matchup, I can't start Gus Edwards.
Yeah, I don't think so because, I mean, Gus Edwards is technically the 1A there, the lead back, but this Ravens offense in general has just not been really playing up to par. He doesn't catch passes, we know this. He kind of is what he is, touchdown or bust. Despite how bad the Titans played last week on defense, they still have a good run defense. I'm going to sit Gus. And then I know Justice Hill did score, but didn't do a whole lot other than that. I mean, there's no way we can start him either, is there?
No, I mean, touchdown or bust here, not starting him.
Now, maybe a surprise here. Derrick Henry, not a no doubt must start because there is another running back in the mix. But first, how do you feel about the former King Henry in London against Baltimore?
Well, he is going to London. Maybe he will become the king again, but this is a tough matchup against Baltimore's defense. I mean, look, I'm not just going to outright bench Derrick Henry. There's still plenty of running backs I'm starting Derrick Henry over. So, for the most part, I think if you got Derrick Henry, you're starting Derrick Henry.
He will have some down games. He had one, a couple of weeks ago as well, where he only got like 10 yards. And then the next week he followed up with like 122 yards and a touchdown. I don't expect that this game, but unless it's an 8-team league, unless I'm just like ridiculously stacked at running back, I have to keep him in my lineup. But what about Tyjae Spears, who has been on the field more than Derrick Henry now in 3 of 5 games, and he outscored Henry in fantasy for the second time in 5 games. Does that mean Tyjae Spears can be started?
Yes, it means he can be started, but I'm not going to put him in that, must start. This isn't like a great matchup where I feel great about Tyjae Spears. But if you need him, you can start him as, a flex or a desperation RB2 type of play.
Yeah, I think Spears will have more value in games where we feel confident Titans will be playing from behind. Again, with the way the Ravens have played on offense, I don't feel for sure that's going to happen this week. I did talk about this a lot in the waiver wire video, and Spears, pick him up, stash him. If you need him, play him, but I'm going to say only if you really need somebody this week would I start him. Commanders at the Falcons. Brian Robinson, probably one of the biggest busts of last week. Going against the Bears, did not matter. Can he rebound against the Falcons?
He should. I mean, it's hard to imagine the Falcons doing what the Bears did to this defense. And Brian Robinson's been a workhorse, prior to last week, which you got to kind of throw out the window. This matchup doesn't scare me. If I got Brian Robinson, I'm starting him.
I think he goes back to what he is mostly, as a solid RB2. This matchup, again, should be pretty neutral game script for Washington. I would think they're not going to fall behind by multiple scores. So, yeah, I think I feel pretty good about Robinson. And I think because of that, I'm going to say no to Antonio Gibson because, he hasn't really had a lot of value anyways this season.
Yeah, it feels like a guy you're only going to really feel good about if you can project them getting blown out. I don't project that in this game. Going to sit Antonio Gibson.
And then we got Vikings taking on the Bears. Both these teams just struggling to get some wins. What about Alexander Mattison? Still the lead back there. This is kind of what we just talked about with Brian Robinson. Got the Bears and it didn't pan out. Is this a trap game?
Maybe, but also Justin Jefferson more than likely not playing, so maybe they use him more. Maybe they use him more in the screen game. if he can actually catch the ball. I will say Cam Akers got a decent amount of run last week that could continue, but I think in this matchup, you got to feel pretty good about him. I think if you got Alexander Mattison, for the most part, you're starting him.
Yeah, I'm not going to project the Bears' run defense to shut down another running game. Not that the Vikings have such an amazing running game, but Madison's getting volume. Like you said, as a pass catcher, I think he still has that floor. So I'm not going to say he'll have a big game, but I think he's still in the RB2 discussion. And then there's Cam Akers. Do you think he's coming on enough to make him at least viable as like a third running back or flex?
Not quite yet. Even in this matchup, I feel like that's just getting a little too deep. I mean, maybe he does this week, but you don't really want to take the chance that he doesn't, and then you get basically nothing. So let me see it for one more week. I'm going to sit him this week.
Yeah, it's still too soon. I mean, realistically, Akers might need Madison to either have an injury or just take a backseat. That's not happening. So I don't think you can start Akers, but I think he's an interesting bench stash for now. Now, it'll definitely be interesting to see what the Bears do because we know Khalil Herbert out multiple weeks. Rashawn Johnson in the protocol for concussion. So you would think he'd be the lead back, but he might miss this week. If Rashawn Johnson does play, are you plugging him in there?
Yeah, you got to feel pretty good about him against the Vikings on a tough defense. He's looked good in his limited opportunities this year. Not going to say he's a must start, but I think he's a guy that, if you need him, you can start him.
Gonna agree. If he's getting basically all the work, maybe not every touch, but still Herbert out, he's a guy who will catch passes. He's in the conversation at least for a running back as a replacement. Now, if Johnson doesn't go, we might see a lot of Deontay Foreman, a guy who's barely touched the ball this year. Is that too deep?
If Rashawn Johnson is out, I am okay with Deontay Foreman. We've seen in the past, like last year with Carolina, when he gets volume, he can be good, and this isn't a tough matchup. So if Johnson is out, then I feel like Foreman is a guy you can start if you need to.
Yeah, I mean, there's still a lot of running backs that are hurt. Not that many on bye this week, but look, people need some running backs with upside. If he's going to be basically the only guy in this backfield because Herbert and Johnson are out, yeah, he's a solid pickup and kind of a sneaky streamer because it's the Vikings defense. All right, next let's talk Seahawks at Bengals. Kenneth Walker, not an absolute no doubt must start, but he's got to be pretty close. I mean, is there a reason not to start him?
No, and especially in this matchup against the Bengals, not a strong run defense. He should have another solid game. If you got Kenneth Walker, you're starting him.
Yeah, there's really no reason to think twice here. You got Kenneth Walker, again, unless you're in a super shallow league or you get just super stacked at running back. Walker, you have to put him in there. And then Zach Charbonnet hasn't done a whole lot, but we do see that after the bye week, some rookies kind of get a bump in usage. Is that the case here?
Maybe, but kind of like with Cam Akers, I need to see it first before I'm going to trust him in my lineup. So not ready to start Zach Charbonnet this week.
Yeah, gonna agree. I think he's an interesting stash if he was dropped. Somebody that you could really look closer at, but no, you shouldn't be putting him in a lineup. And then what about Joe Mixon? Was looking solid early on, but am I seeing a little bit of dust in the air when he runs the ball?
Yeah, look, I really liked Joe Mixon last week. I thought he was going to have a really good game. I almost put him on the Booms video. Thank goodness I didn't. I mean, it's another good matchup for Joe Mixon. He can always score. He gets the volume. You're probably rolling with Joe Mixon if you have him, but man, there's always a chance for a letdown.
I mean, you would think last week, they got up early. It wasn't a tough run defense. You'd think he would have had a pretty good game. And yeah, well, it should worry you that he got stuffed, right? He should have scored a touchdown, but he kept getting stuffed at the goal line. I mean, this isn't the Mixon we're used to. He's startable, but not a guy I feel like I have to put in my lineup if I have a higher upside option. 49ers at the Browns. There's only one running back to talk about here. That's on the Cleveland side, Jerome Ford. He's still the starter there, but can you trust him against the Niners?
Yeah, I mean, this is a brutal matchup. Man, what a start for Jerome Ford. Titans and then backup quarterback, bye week, now 49ers. But it gets good after this. He gets 3 good matchups after this. But yeah, I mean, look, he's the lead back here. He gets goal line work. He catches passes. Definitely not my favorite RB2 this week, but I think in a lot of instances, you're probably starting him.
Yeah, volume alone, running backs, that's the first thing you should look at. I will say I'm a little worried because there's some whispers again early in the week when we're talking here. Deshaun Watson, maybe still not ready or not wanting to play. I mean, if that's the case and Watson's more hurt or thinks he's more hurt than let on, then I'm probably just sitting forward and avoiding this whole offense. All right, next we got Saints, Texans. Alvin Kamara, I mean, he's definitely been the guy seeing a ton of touches so far in his return from suspension. Against this Houston defense, how high would you be on him?
I mean, I think he's a guy this week you got to start. He's getting all the touches. He's going up against Houston. He scored, which is good to see. Didn't come close to 13 catches, but it doesn't matter because he's getting the touches. Against Houston, you're starting him.
Yep, he's back to being a solid, I would say even high-end RB2. This isn't the Houston defense of last year where they were just like a sieve, but it's still not any reason that you should sit a guy who's getting so many touches. So Kamara, definitely a go. Kendre Miller's the number 2 guy there. He did get a couple of catches, did a little bit, but is it enough?
No, because a lot of his work was in garbage time. So, I mean, look, maybe it'll be garbage time again, but are you banking on that? Are you putting a running back in hoping for garbage time? Hopefully not. Not starting Kendre Miller.
Yeah, and again, before the season, we would think, yeah, they'll run over the Texans. This Texans defense is at least putting up a fight. Yeah, Kendre Miller, just a handcuff, just a stash. And then what about Damian Pierce? Had been underachieving early, starting to come to life a little bit, but would you feel comfortable starting him against this Saints defense?
Not really. I mean, he gets volume-ish. He could score. Only a start him if you need him guy for me.
Yeah, it's a tough matchup. It's hard to say. He might get more touches just because, the Texans have some injuries there at receiver if Tank Dell doesn't play, but still, yeah, Pierce is a guy kind of like Ford because of the matchup, because he hasn't done a whole lot. He doesn't have like this explosive ability. Only start if you need him. All right, here's what we've been waiting for. Colts and Jaguars. Let's predict the future for Jonathan Taylor and Zach Moss, shall we? Jonathan Taylor barely saw the field his first week back, so what happens this week?
Yeah, this is going to be tough. We're going to have to really watch the practice reports, I think, and see, is he logging full practices? What do they say about his touches? But, I mean, it's hard to envision he goes right into week 2, from barely playing to like 60, 70% of the snaps. I think we probably see something closer to 50-50, but I think that puts Jonathan Taylor only in the start him if you need him category.
Yep, I think that's exactly right. I don't think he gets a full workload, and we have to acknowledge that with what Zach Moss did last week, probably going to be hard for them to keep him completely off the field. Why would they rush JT? And also the fact that they just paid up to keep him, they're not going to want to risk him getting hurt right after signing a contract. So you can start JT. I think he will be more involved, but it is risky. And then Zach Moss, probably everyone's favorite bench player a week ago if you had him and he put up massive points. So is he startable this week?
I mean, it would be hard to sit here and say don't start Zach Moss after what he did last week. Just understand there is risk. I mean, yeah, we don't know. We really don't know. But I think if you got Zach Moss, you should be feeling at least good enough. It's the Jaguars. I mean, they have been good against the run, but I think, not a must start, but definitely a guy you can start.
I mean, he's playing like a guy who's got something to prove, and clearly he does. He's going to get, I think, a fair amount of touches. This Jags defense did just shut down Buffalo's rushing offense a week ago. But then again, he just went off against Tennessee, which we keep saying is one of the better run defenses. I think Moss, consider him an RB2 this week, and then take it from there. And then Travis Etienne, I mean, he had himself a big week in London against the Colts. There's probably not reason not to start him.
No, I can't think of any reasons not to start Travis Etienne. Start him if you got him.
Panthers taking on the Dolphins. All right, so in Carolina, Miles Sanders, the 1, Chuba Hubbard, the 2. Neither of these guys have really done a whole lot. Do you think they get it going in Miami? Let's start with Sanders.
Probably not. I mean, you got to think this is going to be a game where they're losing. They're probably having to throw a lot. Now he's splitting with Chuba. can't start Miles Sanders this week. Can't do it.
No, you can't do it. This offense needs to show something, and this is not the week to assume that they will. So, yeah, Sanders just needs to be on your bench. And then, I mean, maybe Hubbard, could you see a path if he gets more time than Sanders, if he gets a lot of dump offs and, some receptions?
I mean, sure, but you really need to be confident that that is going to happen, that he's going to get significantly more work than Sanders. I don't think that's going to be the case, so I'm going to sit him too.
Yeah, I am going to sit him too, unless, again, deep league, maybe. He's got more upside than some other running backs, but not many. And then let's talk Raheem Mostert. Is Raheem Mostert a guy you're still starting?
It's the Panthers. They're not very good against the run. I'm starting Mostert regardless.
He's been playing well, and this matchup, I mean, if anything, he's an auto start because the Panthers have one of the worst run defenses in the league anyway. Patriots at the Raiders. Bill Belichick against his former OC, Josh McDaniels. So we got Ramondre. I mean, there's no denying he's been bad all season, and not just him, but basically the entire Patriots offense. So is he even startable?
I think because of the matchup, he's startable, but that's as far as I'm going to go. I'm going to put him in that start him only if you need him category just because of the matchup.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I hate to say give him one more chance, see if things get better. They're clearly not. There's a lot of issues there. Still got some potential to score, catch some passes, but yeah, again, only if you really don't have anybody better. Lions taking on the Bucks. David Montgomery at this point seems like you have to find a way to put him in your lineup. Does the Tampa defense make you think twice?
It doesn't make me think twice. I mean, this isn't a smash spot like he had last week or anything, but David Montgomery, he's got touchdown upside. He's getting the work. I think if you got Montgomery, for the most part, you're starting him.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in a non-PPR league, there's no question. He's got to be one of your top running backs. Half PPR, pretty much, no doubt. Full PPR, maybe not the week winning upside every week, but I'm starting him if I got him at this point. Now, part of that consideration is whether Jahmyr Gibbs plays or not. He was out last week. If Gibbs is back, I mean, that doesn't change my mind on Monty, but do you go with Gibbs?
I mean, I can't put Gibbs any higher than a start him if you need him guy, and really only in PPR leagues because not getting a lot of work, coming off a hamstring injury, only if you need to.
Yeah, painful to say for those who drafted him highly, but at this point, just too much risk here. Not getting the usage. I mean, he's kind of getting the DeAndre Swift treatment, so only a flex if you need. And then Rachaad White getting to face the Lions. This is a home game. Do you think they get the running game going maybe after their week off?
Probably not. Lions defense really good against the run. I kind of put him right there with like Jerome Ford. Like, he's going to get the volume, but it's a tough matchup. So you can start him, but not my favorite start.
Yeah, agree. I mean, I think that just the fact that really have nobody else they're using in that backfield, and I think that he could catch some passes. I put him like a tick higher than some of those other guys we've talked about that are risky. But again, not a guy I'm starting if I don't have to. Cardinals going to take on the Rams. It looks like we're going to see a lot of Amari DeMarcado, who did take his place last week, the only other running back who was even involved. So is he somebody who interests you if he's the guy?
He interests me, but I'm going to put him in that start him if you need him category. I mean, we're not talking about James Conner here or a proven running back. It's not a bad matchup against the Rams, but it's not a smash spot either. So if Conner is out, you can start him if you need to.
Well, the comp I made here, the quick lazy comp, is DeMarcado. Consider him kind of like a Jaleel McLaughlin, a guy who you didn't know about and now has got some opportunity. The difference is he would get all the opportunity and the touches here if Conner is out, as opposed to a guy like McLaughlin in Denver who's still splitting time with Pierre and maybe Javonte. So I would like DeMarcado a little bit better. Not a must start, but a guy you could feel solid about if you need a replacement. And then there's Kyren Williams. I guess finally had his first down game because he didn't find the end zone. But he's still a guy you feel pretty good about if you have him.
Yeah, I mean, he plays the snaps. He gets the touches. It's the Cardinals. If you got Kyren Williams, you're starting him.
Yeah, I mean, good chance he could score in this game. He's still getting, targets. Nobody else is really threatening him yet. So Kyren Williams, still RB2 that you can trust. Eagles at the Jets. Let's start with DeAndre Swift. Didn't have a huge game, but he's still clearly the guy there. There is no committee. It's just all Swift. Is he a guy who we really need to question?
Yeah, I mean, you think, oh, Jets, tough matchup, but they really haven't been that good against the run. Swift looks good. The offensive line is great. I think for the most part, if you got Swift, you're starting him.
Yeah, you already said it. I mean, the Jets, yeah, still a good pass rush, a good secondary. Against the run, they're vulnerable. Swift is getting all the touches. I mean, this is what we've been waiting for, Swift. I'm rolling him out every week, and I actually feel really good about him this week. So for me, he's a must start. And then this is the Breece Hall we've been waiting for. I know it was against Denver, but still, that explosiveness, it looks like he's back. Dalvin Cook is not. Is Hall a guy that you now have to keep in your lineup?
I'm not ready to put him quite there yet, but you should be feeling very good about him. But again, it was the Broncos. I mean, they're significantly worse against the run than any other team, and it's not just by a little bit, it's by a humongous margin. This is the Eagles, but Breece Hall's a good runner. He's an explosive runner. He can hit the home run at any time. So again, I'm going to say if you got Breece Hall at this point, you're probably starting him.
Yeah, I think he's a solid RB2, even against this Eagles defense, which keeps getting better each week. They're figuring it out. Yeah, he just needs one, right? One big play, which he has done now multiple times. So not an absolute must start, but I think you're feeling pretty good if you have Breece. Giants at the Bills. Well, I mean, if Saquon goes, you're playing him, and if he doesn't, I don't think it matters who's in the backfield anymore for the Giants. But what about Buffalo? James Cook coming off a miserable game. Does he bounce back because it's the Giants?
He should. I like James Cook this week. It's the Giants. They're not going to be way behind like they were last game. Better game script. If I got James Cook, I'm liking him as a solid RB2.
Yeah, I'm just forgetting last week. I know some people will start to worry. I'm not. In fact, I'm going to say James Cook is going to be one of my favorite RB2s this week. And it's not like Latavius Murray did anything better. But because of the matchup, do you think that he could be in the flex discussion?
Desperation flex if you need a touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what he'll be every week. So, yeah, if you got nothing better, go for him. And then Cowboys, Chargers, Monday night. Well, hopefully you're just rolling out Austin Eckler if he plays. But if Eckler is not ready, can we consider Joshua Kelly?
No, hard pass on Joshua Kelly.
Yeah, I think we've learned this lesson already. Kelly, just not going to do it for you. Now you know which running backs should be in or out of your lineup for week 6. Don't forget receiver, quarterback, tight end, everything else you need to win this week in our playlist right here.